I don't like people that always have the recipe for success. I like to try things, to experiment a lot, to see the results, to look at the numbers, and to understand what's working and what's not.
All right, everyone, we are back on the Ramp podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me. It is Raffaele Gaito. Raf, how are you today?
Hi, Danny. I'm super good and very excited to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, we're pumped to chat with you. You have such a broad range of perspective on storytelling, on content creation, on entrepreneurship, and I know our audience is going to absolutely love this episode. Before we dive into some meaty topics on how job seekers can up-level their approach and really go beyond just the job search, I want to know, who is Raffaele Gaito?
I love this one. It's always so easy and so complex at the same time. I would say that I'm a curious person. Curiosity is probably the most important thing for me. I mean, in my career, in my professional life, but in general, in every aspect of my life. I think if you are a curious person, you can have this kind of approach of mindset in everything. So the way you travel, the way you read books, the way you meet new people, the way you pick your next, movie or, music or restaurant or whatever. So I would say that this is probably the main thing for me. And this also, of course, has had a huge impact on my professional life because I've always kind of one of those person that always want to do something new every couple of years. So it's really hard for me to say, I'm this or I'm that. I don't like labels in general. But I would say that I'm an entrepreneur, and that's, of course, true. But that's not just this. I'm also a content creator. I'm an author. I do a lot of teaching and coaching, so I can say that I wear a lot of different hats. And those are all important aspects of my life, of my professional life. But the common path between all of these is curiosity. And also trying to have always, let's say, an experimental approach. I don't like gurus. I don't like people that always have the recipe for success. I like to try things, to experiment a lot, to see the results, to look at the numbers and to understand what's working and what's not. And I try to have this approach on my projects. So my personal stuff, the books, the content, the teaching and everything else, but also when I work with clients and with students, I always try to give them this kind of, approach and mindset, always trying to be, someone that experiments a lot. That's really, really important for me. Yeah, and this is it, I think.
Yeah, I love it. Well, really good overview. And there's a bunch of threads that I want to pull on during this discussion. Where I want to start with you more specifically is the content piece. And for some of our audience, content is really interesting, not just in a career aspect, but in really communicating their story or their message to potentially an employer, but potentially for the longevity of their career. We've seen content creation become incredibly popular and incredibly important for folks to make an impact on their communities or even the niche that they specialize in. Let's start at the very top with you. How did you get started? Did you just wake up one day and say, I just want to share a little bit more about myself, and then it snowballed? Or is it something totally different? Or you're just like, I'm really good at recording videos. This is where I'm going.
No, actually, I was really bad. I mean, if I take a look to, my first video is kind of embarrassing. Really, really bad. And not, just the technical side of it, lights and camera and microphone. But I mean, seeing myself, talking in front of a camera 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember, I was like super shy. I didn't know what to do. So I think that's probably the same process, the same, first step for everyone out there. And that's, the hard part, but it's also probably the most important thing to understand, so that everyone starts from scratch. That's the thing. Everyone. And when I work with my students, for example, or with my clients, we do this, let's say this exercise. So I tell them, what's your favorite creator? Give me, a name of a famous YouTuber that you like. Let's go back in time and see the first video that they uploaded. And you can see how they were in the same situation. even the big ones, I don't know if you like Mr. Beast or if you like, I don't know, someone really huge on YouTube,
Yep.
go back in time, check their first video or like the first 10 or, 100 videos. And you'll realize very soon that they were just like you, very shy. They didn't know anything about the technical stuff of making a video or recording a podcast or, whatever. They just started. That's the thing. You just do it. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how you are doing, but you learn, during the process. And maybe the most important part of the whole thing is that you have to love the process. That was my thing, at least. So I knew that I was really bad with content, but I loved the idea of making content. I loved the idea of, sharing my ideas, sharing my values, sharing my journey. That was the goal from the beginning. My goal has never been to teach someone what to do and how to do it. It was more like, I want to document my progress. I want to tell you my story. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm learning right now. And I'm going to share it with you. So I don't know, if I'm reading a nice book, I'm going to tell you, oh, you should read this book because I loved it. Yep. If I'm trying a new tool, I can tell you, oh, you should try this tool because it's like super cool. If I discover, I don't know, a new podcast or a new YouTube channel, I always like to share it with my audience. So maybe here the most important word is this one, is sharing. At least for me, it made a huge difference. And then, yeah, you have to love the process. That's the key.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. Such a good mentality. And there's a lot of things that I heard there that resonate with me in maybe a different way. But, you just kind of start and then keep moving. And then sometime between that start point and where you are today, it starts to feel more natural. It starts to feel like you're becoming, if not an expert, at least proficient at what you're doing. And then you can take the next step. It doesn't just happen, even for these big folks who have crushed it. I think even like Justin Bieber got to start, kind of on YouTube as well, right? Like it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes many repetitions of doing the same thing over and over again, experimenting, testing, and growing your audience. And then at some point, it does snowball a bit. For our audience specifically that wants to use content in up-leveling their job search, what type of guidance do you have at maybe a top level? And then I would love to dig into some specific tactics as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, of course, it depends, right? So everyone now can use content at different level, for different goals. So nowadays, companies create a lot of content because they want to attract talent, for example. Or if you are like a freelancer or an entrepreneur, you create content because you want to attract new customers. But for people that are, kind of looking for a career, they want to change job, they want to, apply for a new job, or they are starting right now because they, I don't know, just finished the university or whatever. Content can be also really, really important. Something that, I think we all realized in the last maybe 4 or 5 years is that everyone is going to Google you before, hiring you. Maybe even before, looking at your LinkedIn profile or, sending a DM on LinkedIn for HR people, they're going to Google you. And this is going to have a huge impact on the first idea that, they're going to have about you. What do I mean by that? So if you are, I don't know, a backend developer, they're going to see if there is some, piece of code online about you, something that you uploaded on GitHub, on one of those platforms. If you are a graphic designer, they want to see what you have done before. So what's your job? Where can I see it? Do you have a profile on some website? Do you have your own blog? Do you have, your own show reels or whatever? If you are a copywriter, can I see your newsletter? Can I see your blog? Can I see your work somewhere? And even if you are not one of those, in one of those careers, even if you are doing something else, having your content out there, it's important because it's the best way for you to share your approach, to share your mindset, to share your values. So let's say that you are in, I don't know, in finance. Okay, let's pick finance as a random, industry. Let's say that you are in finance. Well, you should have a podcast about that, or you should have a newsletter about that. You should have a blog about that. And you can talk about, news, you can talk about trends, you can record interviews with experts, with decision maker, with people that are kind of, important in that industry. You can start building your own personal brand. I hate the word personal brand, but just to to understand each other. You can build your own personal brand. In that case, your final goal is not to attract clients because you are not doing a freelance job, but is to attract, the job that you are dreaming of. That's why content for me is nowadays is important for everyone. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what your goal is. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be, a freelance, if you want to have a career in a company for content for me is the starting point. Always the starting point.
Super smart, super smart. And I think it's a great way to get, distribution at scale, even if it is a small distribution on a specific platform. If you do keep working at it and your message is really clear and it's consistent and it's focused, you will develop an audience. I know it's hard to see when you're starting out. Even for us at Ramped, we started producing content on a regular basis 3-4 months ago. And it did take a while. It's still taking a while. We are not complete in our journey and our audiences are not complete at all, but it has started to compound and we have seen some of the benefits of it. And you just have to stick with it, just like nearly everything else.
And also, Danny, if I can add something else, I think there is a very important aspect that not a lot of people think about it. And if you are, already working in a company, nowadays companies are building their own, let's call them internal influencer. And this is huge. This is becoming really, really huge. A lot of companies realize that it's way cheaper, to have internal influencer instead of paying someone, outside the company for a digital PR campaign or for sponsored content or, for whatever. So this can be an asset for you, not only, if you are looking for a new job, but also if you are looking to have a career inside, your company. And also if you want to be a kind of, someone that is an important position inside the company, having relationship with, stakeholders, being part of, digital campaigns. I think this is a huge opportunity right now.
Really cool. Really cool. And great guidance on this one as well, Raf. I'm curious to know about the different platforms. So diving into some of the tactical elements as well. So we see, at least in the professional world, a lot of folks gravitate towards LinkedIn. That makes sense, right? A ton of people are on LinkedIn. Professionally, they do a good job surfacing content to relevant groups. So if you're in sales, there's going to be sales-specific content. If you're in recruiting, there's going to be recruiting-specific content. I'm curious to know your take on some of the other platforms, the popular ones that are out there, maybe some niche ones. When you're thinking about it from a job seeker perspective, are there any other ones that you can kind of up-level yourself, separate from the noise? Obviously, the main players being someone like TikTok or Instagram. And I do see content creators on there when it comes to professional or job search. But I'm curious to know your perspective and some of the benefits of each one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think maybe the first thing to understand, and we have a lot of, of course, a lot of different social media, a lot of different platforms, but we have two main groups. So you have discovery platforms and you have engagement platform. So the best way to start with content is always to start, to pick one of these and one of these. So in your, let's call it content marketing plan, at the beginning, you should have at least one discovery platform and one engagement platform. What's the difference? So the discovery platforms are the one where people can actually discover you. For example, YouTube, for example, a podcast, for example, a blog. So if I Google, finance tips and tricks, let's say, let's keep with this example, and I find your YouTube channel, your podcast, your blog, that's the first, touching point between me and you. That's why it's called discovery platforms. On the other side, you also need an engagement platform. So a different place, a different social media or platform where you can actually engage with your audience, because it's kind of tricky to engage with your audience in a blog or in a podcast, in this kind of platform. So you go with something like LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Telegram, whatever. So pick one for discovery and one for engagement, at least in the beginning. Of course, if you have, 1 or 2 years of, track record of content, you can add 3, 4, there is no limit to it. But at the beginning, it's always good for me to start, with a mix of those two platforms. So one where they can actually discover you, and the other one where you can actually have daily interaction with your user base, with your audience. Even if at the beginning you have like 10 followers, it doesn't matter. You need a place where you can talk with them, where they can ask you questions, they can give you idea, you can ask for feedback and whatever. But how do you pick the right platform for you? So there is no right platform. Probably the first question that you should ask yourself is, what's the format that you feel comfortable with? So are you more video person? Are you more audio person? Are you more, read and text person? That's probably the first thing that you should ask yourself, because if you don't feel confident in front of a camera, maybe YouTube is not the place where you should start. If you're okay with the idea of recording your voice and putting, your thoughts and ideas out there using your voice, maybe a podcast is way better than YouTube. But if you don't like your voice, you don't feel comfortable in front of a camera, well, you should start with a newsletter, for example, or with a blog. So that's maybe the way you can find your very first platform. And of course, your first platform is not going to be the last one. You can add, in time, different platforms once you gain confidence, once your user base is growing, and you, of course, feel more confident talking about the, topics that you choose, that you pick. And in terms of the engagement platforms, well, it depends. Of course, LinkedIn is the go-to platform for everyone, but it's not the only one. There are a lot of, very, I would say, niche platforms that can be very useful for you. For example, one that I strongly suggest every single time is Quora. Quora is a Q&A platform. If your audience don't know about Quora, is a place where you can ask questions or you can, reply to someone else's questions. That's it. That's a very good place where you can show your expertise, where you can show your skills. So you are into personal finance? Well, go every single day on Quora, search for the most important questions about personal finance, and give them, all the information that you have. Give them value for free. That's how you build an audience, at least at the beginning. Of course, Quora is just an example. Is to tell that, we have a lot of different platforms out there. Reddit is also a very good platform when you can have a lot of, forums, very niche one. So you can pick your own niche and try to be, kind of an opinion leader on that one. Yeah, but it's huge out there. We have a lot of it. Telegram, Slack, Discord, Pinterest. Yeah, we have a lot of options.
Super cool. Super cool. It's a good overview too. And sounds like the idea here is to find something that really aligns with who you are and start there, and find the platform that best represents not only what you could be the expert in, but where you're most comfortable, and just get those motions going, right?
And that's important. That's really, really important. I have a lot of friends, for example, that are very good with text. So they have, huge blogs. They publish, books every single year. But if you put them in front of a camera, they are not comfortable at all. And it means that they don't have, the power and also the skills, the ability to kind of, put the message out there. You lose it. And so if you lose it, you lose the point. So what's the point of, being in front of a camera if you don't know how to talk in front of a camera? So don't do it. Don't force yourself into it. Just, read a blog and be the best one on that. Be the best finance blog out there.
Great. Wonderful advice. One last tactical question before our very last question. And this is one that I often get from job seekers. And our general guidance is you should definitely be out there, definitely be posting, especially on LinkedIn. I'm curious to know, what do you see folks do to very specifically and tactically separate themselves from the crowd when they're out looking for a job, or when they're about to embark on a new career, or when they want to share part of their career journey? Is it as simple as, hey, look, pick some topics within your expertise and just write on them every day? I see a bunch of people do that. Is it, hey, pick some topics and then post some memes every other day so that you get a little bit wider offense? Or pick topics, pick the memes, and then record a couple of videos. So I'm curious to know your perspective on that, or some of the trends that you've seen recently that can help folks level up.
I love it. I love it. And my answer is content curation. What I mean by that. So when we talk about content, the first idea that everyone gets is, oh, now I have to create content. I have to talk about stuff in a blog, in a newsletter, in a podcast, in a YouTube channel. Well, this is, one approach, but there is also another approach, and it's called content curation. Content curation, let's say that it's kind of the easy way to start with content. And sometimes it's the key kind of, to unlock the whole process, especially if this is like your first time ever. Content curation is basically, if you are into finance, let's keep with this example. If you are into finance, I suppose every single day you read, stuff about finance, you watch videos about finance, you listen to podcasts about finance, you buy books, you have all the news and trends, everything else. So what you can do at the beginning is that you can kind of, filter and select the most important things that for you are happening, for example, that day or that week or that month in your own niche, in your own industry, personal finance, for example. So you can start very easy, in a very simple way with, a weekly post on LinkedIn every Monday morning with, let's say, the 5 most important links of the week. And you can say, okay, this is an important news that you should read. This is a book that I loved. This is a YouTube video that I watched. This is a podcast that I suggest. And this is an important trend in personal finance. So you didn't actually create that content. Your job was a different one, was to kind of, filter the most important thing between, the huge amount of content that you read and listened and watched in the previous 7 days or 10 days or 30 days. And that's kind of important if you think about it. It's a different role. It's not you, creating content on the topic. It's you telling people, listen, friends, since I know, I read a lot of stuff about this, I don't want you to read, 10 different, articles, to watch 10 different YouTube videos and to read 10 different books. Those are the most important ones. Start from there. And that's maybe the easiest way to start with content on there. And it's a huge trend, especially for people that are kind of, moving the first step in the content creation world. So the answer is, as I said before, is content curation. You can start with that. It's easy as it sounds. And probably you are already, because most people do it, on WhatsApp or via email. So They read something important or interesting and they send it to friends, to colleagues. Well, if you're doing that, just do it on LinkedIn. That's it.
Cool. I really like that, Raf. It's a really good way to start. Good first steps and easy to execute for an early content creator. I feel like we have just scratched the surface, but I do love the tactical nature in which we've had this conversation. Raf has so much to offer in terms of how to structure content. I was admiring his setup too. His camera's lights out and his audio is amazing too. So I feel like I personally have a ton to learn from you as well. But we do have to wrap the show. We always wrap on this note. We have asked all of our guests the same question on all 4 seasons of the Ramp podcast. The question is, now that you have the benefit of hindsight, if you could go back to the beginning of your career and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Well, I would say to the younger version of me, hey man, look, please start with content and start now. If I look back, the biggest mistake I made is that I started too late. I was reading a lot, consuming a lot of content, but I was really scared of the idea of creating my own content. So yeah, that's what I would say to the younger Raf.
Amazing. I kind of figured that it would be that, but I had to ask either way. Well, Raf, where can folks find you? We want to send people your way. We want them to learn and continue to learn from you.
Well, I have a podcast. It's called Growth Talks. If you can find it on YouTube and also, on Spotify, every podcast platform. It's a show where I interview marketers, entrepreneurs, and creators from all over the world. And we talk about both, digital skills and soft skills. Nowadays, we are focusing a lot on AI, but we talk, about a lot of different topics and trends and news. So just Google Growth Talks. I suppose you will kind of leave the link in the description below maybe. So yeah, and you can find me there. Of course, if you want to ask me something, just add me on LinkedIn, send me a DM on LinkedIn, and I will more than happy to help you.
Amazing. Well, Raf, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a ton. I know our audience is going to absolutely eat this one up. Thank you so much for your appearance on the Ramp podcast, and we hope to have you back someday very soon.
Yeah. Why not? Thank you. Thank you, Danny.
Wonderful. Thank you.